Hey YouTube! I'm here with a special guest that some of you might already know. Hello. Hello, Sarah.
Hello, YouTube.
Thanks for joining us today. We're going to be talking about some of the differences between Paris and New York. So I think Americans are really interested in everything about Paris, and I would say that French people seem to be pretty interested in New York. And I am far from being a New Yorker, which may be a shocker to all of you, but I am from the Midwest of the US, and so I'm also pretty in awe of people who have survived and really thrived in the Big Apple. So I invited Sarah here to come and chat with us about some of the differences between Paris and New York. Are you ready, Sarah?
Yes. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So for those watching who don't know, you tell everybody a little bit about where you grew up and how you made it to New York, unless you grew up in New York.
No, I'm not a New Yorker. I actually grew up in Vermont, and it's very different, though not so far away, although 4 hours car ride.
For French people, 4 hours car ride is far away.
Yeah.
I tell people I grew up in Chicago. I grew up 3 hours south of Chicago, and when they find out it's 3 hours, they're like, that's not Chicago. I'm like, listen, that's close.
It's close in American distance. So, so I moved to New York after college, actually.
Okay.
I had my first job there, and I had also done an internship in New York one summer between, I think it was junior and senior year of college. So I kind of knew that that's where I wanted to go.
All right, and how long did you live in New York before you moved to Paris?
I was in New York for 6 years.
All right, long enough. You can say you're pretty much an expert over here. Close enough. You just celebrated your first anniversary in Paris. Congratulations, by the way. Deserves a congratulations.
Thank you.
So was your first year in Paris harder or easier than your first year in New York?
Oh, I think my first year in Paris was harder than New York. But when I moved to New York, I was moving with like friends from college, and I'd already lived there for a summer, and so I knew it a bit. And you know, it's the same country, so
it's different as well.
New York's super different, but not like Paris. And so when I moved here, it was much like more of a big change and starting French.
Plus the language, and starting French, I'm sure played a role.
Starting French.
I'm sure that there are a lot of big lifestyle differences between living in New York and living in Paris, and one I would think would be the biggest is the work-life balance.
Oh, yeah.
What did you...
Whoa. Let me tell you. Well, New York, everyone's like, go, 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 work, 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 make a lot of money, get ahead. And in France, and in Paris at least, so far, everyone is kind of working to live.
Yes.
So you get so much more vacation living in Paris than you do in New York.
Yeah.
People take the vacation.
Yeah. How much vacation did you have in New York?
I had 3 weeks.
Which is a lot, right?
15 days.
Would you say that's like
I think
average?
That's pretty average.
Average? Okay.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have the stereotype that in the US people only have 2 weeks of vacation. And so I try to say that actually we have no national obligation of vacation like you do. Like in France, you have to give your employees at least 5 weeks.
Yeah.
There's nothing in the law in the US, so 2 weeks tends to be an average, but that doesn't mean that people don't have more and that people don't have less. So it's very dependent.
Yeah. So I really like that about France.
Yeah. Holidays. What is the party life like in New York?
Versus Paris.
Yeah.
Ooh. Well, I would say Paris is much more chill because there's clubs and there are bars, and they are very separate in Paris. Like most of the time, at least when I go out, it's like a bar. Yeah. So you're like sitting around a table, drinking wine, drinking beer, chatting, whatever. You're not dancing, whatever. So when you go to New York, and it's much more kind of fancy, and you're going like out, you have to kind of like dress up more. You're standing in a bar, you're dancing.
Because the bar becomes a club, and so you kind of have to be ready for that later on.
Yeah. And New York in general is like, dress-wise, more fancy than Paris.
Okay.
So,
and were you like the type of partier that was doing like super fancy stuff?
No.
Or no, not even.
No.
So that's like...
Yeah, so maybe I'm not the best to comment on like the bar.
No, but it's just interesting to know from like your point of view if already...
Yeah.
Okay. I know you just said that you can kind of go out at night and be pretty casual, so would you say that fashion-wise in Paris is really casual, or like what would you say about the fashion differences between New York and Paris?
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, it's more casual. A lot of people wear like flats a lot more, I noticed.
We walk a lot more. Did you walk
No,
a
you
lot
walk
in
a lot in New York, but you do it in heels.
Oh,
like small heels.
Yeah.
Not like stilettos.
Okay.
But another thing that's really different, I think, in Paris versus New York is the trends like really catch on in Paris. So, for instance, when I first got here, everybody was wearing the exact same headphones. And in New York, like, there are definitely trends and people, like, wear the same sneakers or whatever, but, like, the population is so big and diverse that people aren't all wearing the same thing. And here it's just like, you're wearing them, you're wearing them, you're wearing them.
Yeah, you can definitely see a lot of trends here.
Yeah.
Has the public transportation been really different? I heard this story before that the metro, the subway, excuse me, in New York, like kind of only goes like north and west or south and east, or that like it's not, I don't know. What did you find about public transportation?
Yeah, so the subway in New York goes north-south primarily.
Okay.
But then it goes to different boroughs, so it starts going a little east-west at the tops and the bottoms.
Okay.
But I think the biggest difference is that with the metro in Paris, there are stops like every 2 seconds, basically.
So nice.
It's really nice because you can always get on the metro, but it takes forever to get like actual distances.
Yeah.
But Paris is so much smaller size-wise than New York that I like can stop that much.
Yeah.
But in New York, the stops are much further apart. And
did you take the public transportation as often in New York as you did here? Okay.
Yeah.
One of my most favorite things about living in Paris is all of the terraces. I love that you can sit outside to eat during the summer. During the winter, they're heated. It's just like Terrace Central.
Yeah.
Is it the same in New York?
Not really, but you also like don't want to be on the streets eating in New York so much. There are some places where you can sit outside, but no, it's nothing like here where there's literally like outdoor seating everywhere, all seasons.
Okay.
Like, no, it's not like that.
Paris win.
Yeah.
Big stereotype is that French and New Yorkers are really, really rude. So, would you say that the French are more rude in Paris, or the Americans in New York more rude?
Oof. Well, I think a big difference is, well, both are rude, yes. There are more kind of crazy people in New York that are just kind of like on their own planet. But here it kind of feels like people are like going out of their way to just be rude to you when you interact with them. And I think the other thing in New York, like you can, if you go to, I don't know, the DMV or something to get your license, like, and the woman's kind of rude, you can kind of be nice to her and like kind of, win her over a bit. But here in Paris, like, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I would say in the States, we often say, like, if you just, like, can kill people with kindness, so the nicer and nicer you are, then the more that person becomes nice. And in France, it feels like in order to get what you want, you need to be as mean as that person. So you have to be as rude. So it's you're not used to
exactly
it. It's against, like, the nature of what we've been taught to do, so that's always something.
Smiling.
So I have the opportunity to work with Sarah on a daily basis. Very lucky. So would you say that there are some big differences between working in Paris versus New York? Because Sarah actually went from the New York offices to the Paris offices of the same company, so you can get like a really good comparison.
I would say like the major difference is the number of coffee breaks that people take in Paris. It's like up there. I mean,
and I've actually been part of a team that we're all smokers, and the smoke breaks were like, going downstairs every hour. I was really surprised when I first started at work about that as well. Sarah has a real passion for everything food and everything Asian food as well. Would you say the food's really different between, New York and Paris? They're both big international cities. Do you think you can find the same stuff? Or
I think the biggest thing is that there's more variety in New York, and it's available all the time. Like anything all the time. And here some things are obviously better than, the quality of them in New York, but
overall you feel like food is New York for the win on that one. And finally, what would you really miss from Paris if you move back to New York?
I got accustomed very quickly to the work-life balance and vacation time available here in France.
I wonder if that's everybody's number one. I think it's gotta be, right?
It would be really hard to like change that. because it has such a big impact on you, like daily as a person, when you have so much
Totally.
time off and to look forward to things. So, yeah.
Feel yeah. So, hold on. With all of my guests, I love doing rapid fire questions. So
They're really fun too.
we're gonna do it again with Sarah, and these are gonna be New York versus Paris.
Okay.
You ready? You've got to respond right away without thinking too much.
Okay, I'm gonna think. Okay.
All right. Croissant versus cronut.
Croissant.
Metro versus subway.
Metro. Oh gosh.
Statue of Liberty versus Eiffel Tower.
Ooh, Eiffel Tower. I mean, Statue of Liberty is French too, but
True.
Eiffel Tower is prettier. Yeah.
Deep dish American pizza versus thin crust French pizza.
Oh, okay. First of all, deep crust American pizza does not exist in New York. So
I guess my rapid fire question was more for Chicago people.
thin crust pizza, either New York or Paris.
Scratch that one. Parisian winter versus New York winter.
Oh, Parisian winter. I mean, it's just
way more
way warmer.
mild.
Yeah.
Hamptons versus Deauville.
I haven't been to Deauville, but I really don't like the Hamptons.
So we'll go with Deauville. Arc de Triomphe or Washington Square Park?
Oh, the mini Arc de Triomphe.
There's a mini Arc de Triomphe in Washington Square Park.
The real one is very impressive.
Champagne versus beer bong.
Champagne.
Yeah, I'm a champagne all the way too.
Oh man, so good.
Macaroon versus cupcake.
Ooh, cupcake. Because it has the cake and the frosting. Oh,
Same the frosting.
Love.
Donut versus pain au chocolat.
Donut.
I'm so donut. I miss donuts. Bone shakers. If you guys have never been, I love bone shakers in Paris.
I know you do.
I know you got me some for my birthday last year. Espresso versus Americano.
Oh, Americano.
Cheese versus cheesecake.
Ooh. Ooh. Ooh.
It's a hard one.
Cheese.
Cheese. The smelly one.
All of them.
All of them. And finally, Cartier versus Tiffany's.
Oh, Cartier.
Oh! Tiffany's for the blow there.
Sorry, Tiffany.
All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. It was really fun to talk with Sarah, all the differences between Paris and New York. Of course, we didn't hit everything, so if you have any comments, don't hesitate to leave them below, to like and share the video. You can follow any of my adventures at unintentionallyfrenchified.com for my blog, the link's below, and you can follow everything I'm up to on Instagram as well at, again, unintentionallyfrenchified. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll see you soon.